Hello and welcome to today's tutorial in Adobe Photoshop. Our lesson today takes around 15 minutes and is split into the following sections. In the first section, we'll provide some background information about Photoshop and how you can get your own copy of the application. Next, we'll help you get familiar with the basic functionalities of Photoshop, as well as provide you with some basic advice for creating your own Photoshop projects. Lastly, you'll have the chance to follow along with the tutorial and practice your newly acquired skills. The files used in this video can be downloaded from the link below so that you can follow along as we go through the tutorial. Section 1. What is Adobe Photoshop? Photoshop is a software that allows you to use a vast array of graphic design work. You can edit photos, create art, modify graphics, and more. You can even make animations. Basically, the possibilities with Photoshop are endless, and most users only utilize a small fraction of Photoshop's potential. Photoshop is part of Adobe's Creative Suite, which includes a number of different kinds of software for different use cases. The most well-known and commonly used are Photoshop, to edit pictures, Illustrator, to create vector-based images, and InDesign, to create layouts. So, when should you or should you not use Photoshop? Well, Photoshop is a super comprehensive tool and the professional standard in image creation and editing. If you want to create an image and don't want your creativity to be limited by a software's capabilities, Photoshop is the tool to use. On the other hand, getting started with Photoshop can be quite complicated, but don't worry, we've got you covered with this video and the tutorial that follows, and after you learn the basic functions, it actually is fairly intuitive. Additionally, Photoshop can be quite expensive as it comes with a monthly subscription. If you're not willing to spend a certain amount every month, you might want to consider other tools which are free. And now we're going to talk about different access options and where you can get Photoshop. Adobe offers a number of different plans for Photoshop with varying prices. To download Photoshop, navigate to adobe.com, click on Creativity and Design, and just select Photoshop. Scroll down to find the different pricing schemes. The single app package can give you access to Photoshop as well as some extras like special fonts and social media tools and costs 24 francs per month. The basic package, which you can use for essential photo editing, costs about 12 francs per month. An addition of 1 terabyte of cloud storage will bring the subscription price to 24 francs per month. The most popular package, the full Adobe Cloud Suite, gives you access to the full range of Creative Suite apps and costs 58 francs per month. However, you can download a free trial version of Photoshop for 7 days with no credit card required. If you decide to buy any version of Photoshop after the free trial period, students are eligible for a 65% discount off the price of all Creative Suite apps. To download the free trial, all you have to do is sign up using your email address. Now let's get started with Photoshop. When Photoshop is opened, you can either start a new document, open an existing file, or create a new file. You do this by clicking on File, New. Photoshop gives you a couple of pre-configured options. You can use these presets if you want to build something for print, web, or mobile. But let's start by creating our own dimensions. When determining the size of the document, you can choose between a couple of unit options as well. What you plan to use your document for can help you decide which setting to use. Pixel is mainly used for web applications, and centimeters or inches are used if you want to use the file for printing purposes. Pixels are very small dots of physical points in a raster image. They are the smallest addressable element on a display and allow you to determine the width and height of a document. Most screens have a resolution of around 1920 by 1080, so that's a good starting point. You can change the size of the document at any time in the design process. The resolution settings regulates how many dots or pixels are used per centimeter or inch. The short form is called DPI, dots per inch. This setting can be important if you want to print the document or use it for high quality purposes such as videos. For web, usually a DPI resolution of 72 is the standard, which means that each centimeter in your screen contains 72 individual dots. If you want to print a file, most agencies require a resolution of at least 150, and in some cases up to 300 DPI. You should select the color mode depending on whether you want to create a web application or if your document will be printed. For web applications, it's recommended to use RGB, which means all colors are generated by mixing different tones and intensities of red, green, and blue. Most professional printers, however, work with 4 different colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, which is black. CMYK, so it's best to use CMYK for printed applications. Our main takeaways for setting up your document are: when using Photoshop for web purposes, determine the size by using dots. The resolution should be somewhere between 72 and 150 DPI, and the color mode should be set to RGB. When you want to use Photoshop for printing an image, you can set the size in inches or centimeters to the exact measurements. For sufficient quality, you should use 150 to around 300 DPI, and the color mode should be set to CMYK. Now we're going to talk about Photoshop's user interface. The Photoshop user interface mainly consists of 3 different windows. The Tools menu at the left-hand side of the program allows you to have an access of a variety of different functions, some of which will be presented in this video. The Options at the top part of the program changes according to which tool you have selected and allows you to further define the particular tool. We'll go over this in more detail in a few minutes. Lastly, the control panel at the right-hand side is built like your control panel or dashboard. It includes a multitude of different windows to control your actions or add functionalities such as color corrections. You can customize this part according to your needs by clicking on Windows and by selecting or deselecting different windows. For the tutorial, please make sure the following windows are activated: History, Navigator, and Layers. If one of them is missing, you can easily get the windows over the Windows tab. So, what do these features do? The Navigator allows you to keep track of where you are in your document. You can easily zoom in or out and use the mouse to move your vision. The layers are built like a deck of multiple transparent pictures lying on top of one another. If one layer is situated above another, it means that this layer overlaps the one beyond. You can easily make layers invisible by clicking on the eye icon, or remove them completely by clicking on the trash icon. Let's see this in practice. We have a picture with multiple layers of balloons. As you can see, balloon 1 lies above balloon number 2. If we change the order of the layers, we see how suddenly balloon 2 moves to the foreground. Lastly, we have the history window. This one allows you to reverse and forward your actions. In Photoshop, the command Edit Undo is only allowed once. If you want to go back a couple of steps, you have to use the history, which shows every single action you took in a protocol style. Simply click on the few actions back and it will reverse your actions or allow you to go forward. Here's a quick recap. The left-hand side gives you different tools to use. If you want to get even more specific, you can use the top part that adjusts itself according to the tool selected. The right-hand side is your control panel. Important are the Navigator tools to navigate within the image, History to reverse or forward actions, and Layers to set which image should lie on top of one another. Now let's move to Chapter 5 to get you familiar with the different selection tools. From using programs like Paint, you might already be familiar with the regular marquee tool that allows you to make a rectangular selection. Today, however, we want to remove the green color behind the bird and make the background transparent. To do so, we will first use the lasso tool. The lasso gives you 3 options. The regular version allows you to make a selection freehand. The polygonal tool that makes a selection by connecting multiple points. And the magnetic tool that works like a smart version of the regular tool. Just follow the shape and the tool will determine automatically the shape that you want to select. When you're done with the selection, right-click and select Layer via Copy, and there you go. You will have a new layer with a transparent background. A time-saving alternative for making selections is the magic wand. If the background consists of the same color tone, you can just select the wand and click on the background. Photoshop will automatically search the document for similar colors and include them in your selection. The tolerance measures how much deviation from the selected color will still be included. A level of 0 means that just the exact same color is selected, whereas a value of 50 will roughly include all similar color tones. You can select multiple color tones by pressing the Shift key and clicking at different parts of the image. To change the selection from the background to the bird, click Select, Inverse, and proceed just like we did with the lasso to bring the bird to a new layer. Here are key learnings summarized. To make a selection, you have 3 options: predefine forms with the marquee tool, customize your own shape using the lasso, or make a selection for one particular color tone using the magic wand. In Chapter 6, we're going to talk about repairing and covering up your image. Photoshop is also really important for beauty retouching and image manipulation. 3 of the most important tools to know are the clone stamp, the healing brush, and the patch tool. Let's practice some of the techniques using the picture with the pimple. The clone stamp allows you to take one part of an image and paste it onto another part of the image. First, select the part of the picture that you want to use as a reference. Pressing the Alt key, you can see how the cursor changes its appearance. Click with the mouse to make the selection. A right click will allow you to change the size of the stamp. Now move to the part that you want to cover and simply click again. You can see how the pimple disappears. A different tool you can use is the healing brush. It works exactly like the stamp, however, it maintains the hue tones from the original image. Select the sample by pressing the Alt key and just copy the structure of the clean skin onto the pimple. Even simpler is the patch tool. First, select the part that you want to change by drawing a circle around it. Subsequently, you can choose the area that should be used as a reference to cover certain parts of your image. Here are our learnings from Chapter 6. To repair or cover up part of an image, there are multiple tools you can use, namely the clone stamp, the healing brush, and the patch tool. When you use the clone stamp and the healing brush, mark the reference area first by pressing the Alt key. When using the patch tool, mark the area that you want to cover first. Remember that the stamp tool simply copies the exact reference area. The other two tools keep the hue tone but only change the structure of the image. Are you still with me? Let's continue with Chapter 7. Photoshop is also very popular for the multitude of filters you can put over an image. Filters also work like individual layers, and their effects apply to every layer that is placed under them. To select a filter, you can either click Filter at the very top, or just use the bottom of the layer window. Let me introduce you to some of the filters. To make an image black and white, simply use the filter Black and White. You can use the regulators in the Properties window to change the brightness of individual colors when converting them to black. If you only want to change the hue, simply use the filter Hue Saturation. Additionally, you can change the hue level of the whole picture. Or you can select colors individually and change their hue level one by one. To adjust brightness and contrast, just use the respective filters and adjust the slider until the brightness and contrast levels are as desired. When you want to change the colors, it gets a bit more interesting. If you want to adjust the overall color of an image, you can use the filter Color Balance. Just drag the sliders to certain levels of color. For example, you can change the tones from warmer to cold. When you want to change colors individually, you should use the Selective Color Correction. This filter allows you to select individual colors and change the color levels of other colors within the selected color. This sounds a bit complicated, so let's try an example. If you want to make the sky more blue, just select the color blue and cyan, and put the levels of cyan and magenta to the maximum. While these filters help you change the colors, there are also a variety of different artistic filters you can use. You will find these filters at the top section under the Filters category. There really are a ton of different filters, each of which performs a different function. We can only recommend to make yourself familiar with all of these filters to really start learning Photoshop. Just to give you an idea of what you can really do, we'd like to show you the Gaussian blur. This tool comes very handy when you want to blur something out. So let's take this criminal for example, who doesn't want to be recognized. Make a selection around his face and paste it into a new layer. Now you can use the Gaussian blur to help him stay anonymous. Change the radius to adjust the intensity. To sum up Chapter 7, there are a ton of different filters you can use. Just try some of them to understand which filters might be useful to you. However, the most important ones are Black and White / Saturation to reduce the hue level of an image or certain colors, Brightness and Contrast to adjust the brightness and contrast of your image, Color Balance to change the overall tone of the image, and Selective Color to change individual colors in your image. Chapter 8. Text. We're almost there. Let's move on. Even though other tools like InDesign might be a better fit to align text, you can also use the text function in Photoshop. Just select the text tool at the left-hand side of your window and click somewhere in the document to place a text field and type something. For instance, let's type name. Like in other programs, the window Character allows you to control parameters including font type, font size, font style, and of course, the font color. Chapter 9. Transform and Crop. To make sure that your text fits the document, let's jump straight into this chapter. One of the basic shortcuts that you should remember when using Photoshop is Ctrl-T, or Command-T respectively, if you're using a Mac. This function is called Transform and allows you to resize an image. Using it, you can now easily scale the object by dragging it to the required size. If you press Shift, it will keep the same proportion of height to width. And if you move the cursor next to the object that you want to transform, you can also rotate the image. Before we end this tutorial, let's also get you familiar with the Crop tool. This tool is very useful if you want to change the dimensions of an image. Just select the button on the toolbar on the left and slide down the borders of the image until you're happy with the result. Confirm by pressing T. Welcome to the final chapter, Chapter 10, Saving Your Work. Over the past couple of minutes, you've learned the basic functionalities of Photoshop. However, to show off your skills to other people, you need to save the result. Here are a few things to consider. To save an image, click on File at the top bar and select Save As. There are 3 different formats that you should be familiar with. First, the Photoshop file, or .psd. This file type saves the whole working environment, including layers. It's super useful if you want to continue working on a file later on. Secondly, .png. This file type saves your image in high resolution and also keeps transparent areas transparent. However, the image is flattened down to 1 layer. And third, the .jpg. You've probably heard of this one before. The .jpg allows you to reduce the file size as you please, which is particularly useful if you're using the image for web purposes. So, 3 formats to remember. The .psd keeps the layers and also keeps transparent parts of the image transparent. It's good if you want to return to your file at a later point. However, it also comes with downsides. This file can only be opened in Adobe programs like Photoshop and has a huge size. The .png flattens the layers but maintains transparent parts. It's good if you want to have pictures with transparent backgrounds or high quality. You can use it nearly everywhere and open the file with any program. On the other hand, the file is slightly bigger than a .jpg. And last but not least, the .jpg, the most common file. It flattens the layers and makes transparent areas white. But as with the .png, you can use it almost everywhere. Open the file with any program and you can get the best results in quality file size ratio. Congratulations! By now, you should be a Photoshop expert. Well, almost. The official part of the introduction and tutorial ends here. But if you think that you have the fundamental skills already, head over to our next video and try it out for yourself. So, thank you very much for your attention, and we hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or want to learn more functionalities, please feel free to reach out to one of us. Thanks.